Hello, welcome to the Comic Book Commentary. I'm Bo Leidig, and this week we're going to be diving back into the world of Spawn miniseries with Angela number 1. So let's zoom in and take a closer look. Before we get into today's video, I would like to point out that the plot of the Angela miniseries is based heavily on the events that took place in issue number 9 of Spawn. So if you haven't watched my video on Spawn number 9 yet, I do suggest that you watch that before watching any of the Angela miniseries episodes, simply because there's certain parts of it that aren't going to really make any sense if you haven't watched my video on that issue yet. As we can see here, it was first printed in December of 1994, and the cover is actually really cool. I like the fact that it's the all-white background with the depiction of Angela in the middle covered in blood as she's assumedly involved in some sort of ridiculously over-the-top battle. I like the frame that was drawn around it, where it's kind of just this, I don't know, almost kind of like you have the elements of like an angel up top here, but then all this like over the top, like spiky, silvery metal stuff around the edges. And, you know, it just really draws attention to the focal point in the middle of the cover. This is good work by Greg Capullo. He very rarely disappoints. Story, Neil Gaiman. Art, Greg Capullo. Letters, Tom Orzechowski. Color, Todd Broker and Fierce Color Graphics. I would like to point out right here that we can see the Spawn symbol, which is very often depicted on the reverse inside cover, has its colors reversed. Normally the black and white are in the opposite orientation, and I don't know why this was done, but it actually does kind of look cool. Maybe it's just for the fact that it's a story that revolves around a different character, but I like that it was done. Over here at the beginning of the story, we see that it is Angela's 100,000th birthday, and she has decided to reward herself and give herself a happy birthday by going out on a hunt for a Sandalphon dragon, which is the alpha predator of the planet known as Sandalphon 5. I don't know that this planet exists in outer space. It says in the different little thought bubbles here of Angela's inner monologue that it exists in a far corner of space-time, so it's possible that its existence is in a parallel reality, perhaps? It's not really explained, but we can see that there are other planets in the background of the sky, and that the planet itself is actually covered completely in ice. Most of the creatures that inhabit this planet live under the ice. The dragons are assumedly the only creature that live up on the surface, and that does beg the question of how exactly they hunt the other animals on the planet, but it's not really explained. As we see on the bottom, Angela is preparing herself for what she believes is going to be a pretty intense battle with a pretty powerful monster. We see Angela beginning to scale up the side of the mountain that has the lair of the dragon within it so that she can get above the opening. She recalls in her readings of the manual that explains how to hunt these dragons, which, by the way, are considered to be the most dangerous game to exist that isn't a hellborn creature. And that manuscript states that it's supposedly suicidal to disturb one of these creatures while they're in their lair. So that's exactly what she does, yelling, "Hey, ugly, it's my birthday. Come out and wish me a happy birthday." This, of course, gets the dragon's attention immediately as we see it starting to exit the cave. As soon as he sticks his head out, Angela jumps off the top of the cave opening and kicks him as hard as she can in the head. However, this does absolutely nothing to harm the dragon in any way. She, in fact, even chastises herself, saying that it was stupid for her to think that a kick to the head would be enough to stun the dragon. And she realizes that he has the upper hand at this point, as he's looking pretty vicious and gnarly, as she has apparently lost the axe that she was carrying, because we never see it again after this panel. And she draws a sword from her back as she starts to recall that if she only has a blade, she only has one chance to get inside and take the dragon out, and it's a slim chance at that. Angela then lunges forward with a dagger and sword in hand as we see her ribbons flare out. This is also the point where we learn that Angela's ribbons act in a similar manner to the K3 Mirlu symbiote that Spawn wears, where the ribbons can act of their own volition. Sort of like, yeah, kind of like Spawn's chains and cape. They also provide warmth. They're actually what's keeping her from completely freezing in these temperatures, which you wouldn't think that those would necessarily affect her, being that she's an angel, but it's also stated here that she's not totally immortal, as this dragon absolutely has the capability to kill her. As she's making her way closer to the dragon, we see the dragon use its tail to counterattack. She dodges out of the way at the last moment. We then see the dragon lunge forward to grab her with his mouth, which he does get her on the shoulder as she wasn't able to move out of the way quick enough. This does actually harm her as she feels the pain from the teeth going into her flesh. However, she maintains her composure and then decides to thrust the sword into the dragon's eye as deep as she possibly can. This, of course, is stated in the hunting manual as the only real chance you have of defeating one of these dragons with nothing but bladed weapons, in the hopes that you can destroy the dragon's brain if you get deep enough into its skull. However, the dragon then stands there looking very menacing, and Angela believes that she's now in some real trouble as she didn't get the sword in deep enough. The animal is still alive and now psychotically enraged due to the pain of having its eye stabbed out. And just when she's starting to think that maybe this wasn't the best idea, the dragon then collapses dead directly on top of her. We then see Angela slowly crawl out from underneath the dragon, stating that it did hurt to have this beast, which was several tons, fall on top of her. However, she's okay as her ribbons protected her and took the brunt of the impact. However, this took a lot out of the ribbons, as we see they're no longer moving about in a suspended type of manner. They're all just laying all across the ground. She also realizes that this wasn't necessarily the most graceful hunt of her career. However, she thinks to herself that she can retell this story however she likes when she gets back home. She pulls the sword out of the dragon's eye and begins to hack away to claim her trophy, the head of the dragon, which she believes will look fantastic on the wall of her home, when she is suddenly interrupted by a loud voice saying, "Attention, Angel Angela, you're under arrest and you should surrender with no sudden moves." This, of course, surprises Angela as she turns around to see what is happening. We're then treated to this gorgeous looking 2-page spread where we see Angela turn around to be confronted by an entire host of angels led by the angel Serial, who is wielding a lance, much like the one that we saw Angela use in Spawn number 9, along with many other angels who are wielding lances. The angel Serial states that she's under arrest. She seems confused. Angela says, "I'm what?" Serial says that "you heard me," calls her a traitor, and that she wants her to come with them and do so quietly without putting up a fight. We then see Angela look up and realize that she is absolutely surrounded, seeing all of these lances and guns pointed at her. This is actually a really cool shot. The angel Serial tells her that she is under arrest and tells her not to even think of running, and hopes that she's not stupid enough to contemplate fighting back, as they are authorized to lance her into oblivion if she resists, which Serial says that she is, somewhat intrigued by the proposition of ending Angela, which leads you to believe that Serial and Angela have a past that we are unaware of. Angela looks around and for a moment starts to contemplate whether or not she can fight back against a host of angels, as she starts to crunch the numbers that a host is 333,000 angels, and that she's faced odds worse than this before, but then realizes that no, she actually hasn't, as her ribbons are completely unresponsive, and her shoulder has a pretty significant injury, and that she's also very tired from having just fought a Sandalphon dragon. So she decides that the best course of action right now is to go ahead and give up and go back with the host of angels to Elysium to face her accusers, head on and find out just exactly what is going on as we see them all disappear. And unfortunately, she had to leave the trophy of the dragon's head behind. And we also see that Angela was thinking to herself, out of the 333,000 angels that just arrested her, not a single one wished her a happy birthday. In the blink of an eye, they are teleported back to their home, Elysium, which assumedly is the physical representation of heaven in the Spawn universe. Angela notes that it is the place of angels, the city of glass and eternal light. However, Angela is unable to enjoy this homecoming as she is instantly put into shackles and led to a holding cell. She demands to know what she's being charged with, and Serial tells her that it is high treason. This enrages Angela immediately, as she states it's impossible that she could ever be perceived as a traitor, as she's managed to kill over 30 Hellspawn throughout her life, and that anyone who's ever questioned her loyalties in the past has not had their organs left on the inside of their bodies for long. However, Serial just smirks and states that she should be silent and that she'll have plenty of time to speak at her trial, as we see her being led down the dark hallway to a holding cell, and she states to herself softly that this is shaping up to be a really lousy birthday. Meanwhile, back in New York City, we see that Spawn is standing out in the middle of a horrific thunderstorm with rain coming down and lightning crashing through the skies as he stands on the edge of a building's, I guess, gargoyle of some kind, and basically just feels sorry for himself. He's just in a pit of despair, really, angry about the fact that he can't be with Wanda, and also really having a hard time dealing with the fact that she married Terry Fitzgerald after he died, and states that he's actually more upset about the fact that she married Terry than anything, because, Terry is such a good man, and he was such a close friend to Spawn when he was Al Simmons, and that if she had instead married some jerk, it would be easier for him to deal with that and, kind of just move on and be like, oh, she made a bad choice in her life, when in reality she didn't. She made the best possible choice in her life and got together with someone that Spawn really cared about. And we see that he's just kind of sulking about and even thinks to himself he's not even smart enough to come out of the rain. Back in Elysium, we are teleported to the home of Angela, which is being occupied by two of her friends who are Kuan Yin and Anahita. They were planning a surprise party for Angela when they got the news that Angela had been arrested for treason. They, of course, don't believe that this is the case and are wondering what's going on, and Anahita seems to believe that there's foul play afoot. Kuan Yin isn't really sure how she can come to this conclusion, but Anahita seems to believe that the people charging Angela with these crimes are lying, or at the very least are being manipulated, and states that the two of them need to get to the bottom of this so that they can help their friend. Also, this is a really cool full-page splash of the trophy room in Angela's home. We see all sorts of monsters, and most notably, we see the armor and shield and cape of the medieval Spawn displayed prominently in the middle of the room. This seemingly would have been the most recent Spawn that she had slain, as we saw her do in Spawn number 9. Meanwhile, back in the dungeons, we see Angela being thrown into her holding cell, and then Serial reaches in and takes both of her Spawn belt buckle earrings off, stating that she won't be needing those in her cell. This makes Angela very angry, and she demands that Serial give her back her trophies. She killed those Spawn and earned them. However, Serial states that by the end of this trial, it may come to light that she never killed a single Hellspawn and that she's been working with the Mabulja the entire time. But she states that if it does turn out that Angela is innocent, she will return the earrings without, so much as any type of protest. And as she closes the door, Angela states with a very angry look in her eyes that she'll do a whole heck of a lot more than that. Meanwhile, then again, in the, library of Elysium, we see that Kuan Yin and Anahita have gone to approach another angel by the name of Saranyu, I believe is how you say that, but I could be wrong, who was apparently in charge of all of the records inside of this place. They want to see the evidence that's being used to charge Angela. However, Saranyu just does not seem too excited about trying to help them, as doing so could mean her job and also a whole heck of a lot of trouble. Anahita, though, doesn't waste any time in reminding her that when they were on a hunting trip about 300 years ago, it was Angela who saved Saranyu's life, and that Saranyu owes her one because, without her, she'd be dead. We see her grab Saranyu and start to choke her, and Kuan Yin tells her to back off and that they should just leave. But at this point, Saranyu starts to realize that she does owe Angela a favor and tells the other two angels that they can go and look at the evidence, but that it can never get back to anyone that she was the one that showed them said evidence or gave them access to it. To which the other two angels agree and state that it'll never be brought to the light of day that she helped them. We then see that they have a video testimony from the angel Gabriel, who we met for the first time in Spawn number 9, that is the head of Terran affairs on Earth. She states that Angela came to Earth and never checked in with her, nor did she ever show her any kind of hunting permit, and went after a hellspawn and just engaged it directly with basically no authority. However, we know that this is not true because, as we saw in Spawn number 9, upon her arrival on Earth, Angela went directly to Gabriel, told her that she was there, and presented her with a hunting pass stating that she was there to kill the latest hellspawn. And we also saw that Gabriel told her to make it quick and to not go about her usual method of tailing said hellspawn and trying to lure it into a false sense of security to make the kill easier. She wanted her to go at him directly. The friends of Angela we see here, Anahita and Kuan Yin, do not buy this whatsoever. We then see that Gabriel states that the hellspawn, who was known as Al Simmons during his life, was able to defeat Angela, and that when Angela fled, the lance was lost that she carried, which is called an interdimensional lance. She also states that since then they've not been able to locate the lance, which is a pretty big problem, apparently. It's kind of pointed out that the whole reason that Angela's in so much trouble to begin with is the fact that she lost that lance. And then it kind of snowballed into this whole thing of her being charged with treason and everything. Anahita then believes that Al Simmons, aka Spawn, is the one who has the lance, and decides that they're going to have to go to Earth and get him and the lance to prove that their friend is innocent. We then see that Spawn is still in his alleyway sulking, trying to get Wanda out of his head, not really, doing much of anything except for wallowing in his own sorrows, as suddenly there's a strange pink light that he doesn't understand, and it catches him off guard as we see him looking into it, seeing smoke fill the alleyway, as he's very confused about what's going on. However, before Spawn can make heads or tails of what's happening in front of him, he is caught by a swift kick to the face and is then struck in the chest with a staff. As he falls to the ground in a dazed heap, he is told by Anahita that he's being taken to heaven. As we see, this is the final page of the story, and it's to be continued in the next issue. On the next page, we see image info. Nothing special here. We've seen it a million times at this point. It's just a rundown of upcoming comics that are going to be released by Image. We then see this really cool 2-page vertical spread, which was done by Sean Parsons and Brad Gorby. It looks really cool. What I am surprised about, though, is that this is just a 2-page spread near the end of the book, when it seems like this would have been better served as some kind of a pull-out poster that was in the center. I'm really surprised that this was placed where it was, given that, this seems like something that would have been perfect for a pull-out poster in the middle of the book. But, hey, what do I know? I'm just some guy on the internet complaining about this stuff 30 years after the fact. On the next page, we get a bunch of pictures of a toy factory in, I believe at this point, the toys were being manufactured in South Korea. I can't remember exactly. But this is the beginning of what would eventually become McFarlane Toys. As we see, it was originally called Todd Toys. Many people kind of forget that. But this is the first wave of toys and action figures that McFarlane ever brought out. And he's just showing behind the scenes images of how everything's being brought down the assembly lines and how it's being constructed and how much of it's being hand painted. And, kudos to him. The fact that Todd was willing to, even go out on a limb and try to create his own toy company to compete with the other companies of the time and, then follow through on it to the point where now he's actually manufacturing, action figures for DC Comics is pretty cool. It took him, 30 years to get to where he's at now, but it's an endeavor that's really paid off. And, he really made himself a name for himself, not just in the comic industry, but also in the toy industry as well. And it is cool to see, these images from how it all got started. We then see an advertisement for the very first Angela action figure. If I remember correctly, she came with a lance too, but I'm not certain about that. A far cry from the way that Todd McFarlane's action figures look these days. Also, I don't know that he would ever be producing an Angela action figure ever again, given the fallout between him and Neil Gaiman, and also she's owned by Marvel. If you'd like to know more about that, again, watch my video on Spawn number 9. I go into more detail about it. But, this was a pretty high quality figure for, 1994, when compared to a lot of the other action figures on the shelves at that time. We then see an advertisement for Angel's Visitations, which is a book by Neil Gaiman that contains poems and stories and other pieces of stuff that Gaiman wrote over his career. There was a really cool leather-bound version of this that was limited to 400 copies. It was also autographed. I'd love to get my hands on one of those. Unfortunately, I have a sneaking suspicion that it's rather expensive these days and might be well out of my price range. We then see an ad for the promotion of winning 1 year of Image comic books for free, where you could enter to win literally an entire year of comic books from Image for free. That's literally every book that Image published for, I'm assuming 1995, for literally no money. That would have been a really cool contest to win, dude. You're talking about every single publication. And at this point, going into 1995, most of the creators were kind of getting it together and putting out books on a reasonably reliable schedule at this point. So, you would have been getting a lot of books for absolutely no money. And it's hard to beat that kind of a prize, man. Most people would have been super stoked to win that. We then see an advertisement for the Image Universe Founders series by Topps. I don't know that I've ever come across these trading cards before. If I did, I would probably buy them immediately, despite the fact that I definitely don't need any more, comic book trading cards, as I don't really do anything with the ones I already have. But it would have been really cool, and I would have probably been happy to get these at the time, and I'd definitely be happy to get a chance to get them now. So I'll just have to keep my eyes peeled, I suppose. On the final page of the book, we see an advertisement for Wizard Magazine number 42, which had 2 separate fold-out covers. One that featured Marvel superheroes, the other one Marvel villains, that were both done by Alex Ross. They look fantastic. In the ad, it says, pick which one you want. But let's be realistic. Most people were probably buying both. But why wouldn't you? You were going to wind up with a magazine fold-out cover of some amazing artwork. And, given the price of what magazines were at the time, it wouldn't have been that big of an investment. And on the reverse inside cover, we get an advertisement for Spawn number 27. And if you want to know more about why Spawn number 27 is being advertised in this book when it's December of 1994 and the Angela miniseries should have been coming out at the same time as Spawn number 20, I get into that in my video on Spawn number 19, and I explain the whole thing there. The point is, Todd messed up big time and released comic books completely out of order. I don't even know how you do that, but he managed to find a way. And we see that Spawn number 27 will be featuring a new enemy by the name of the Curse. And at some point in the future, I will be getting to Spawn issue number 27, but that point is going to be a few months down the road. So if you're watching this on the release, you won't be able to see my video yet on Spawn number 27. But if you're far enough into the future, you will. So any of you future people watching this, congratulations, you made the right choice in waiting somehow. And that was Angela number 1. I really like this book a lot. It's a far different story than what we saw with the Violator miniseries in terms of its tone and its pacing and the story it's telling. You know, it's definitely not the dark comedy feel that we got with the Violator miniseries at all. But I think it does a great job of giving us real insight into the character of Angela and also explaining the world that she comes from and how it differs from, you know, the spheres of hell that are fighting against the forces of heaven. It is a really cool way of like expanding the mythos of Spawn. And I don't know how much of this is technically still canon due to the fallout between Todd McFarlane and Neil Gaiman. But at this point, when it was first released, it was definitely a real eye-opener and a way to expand the overall narrative of the Spawn comic. But of course, these are just my opinions. Your opinions may differ, and if they do, that's okay, because everyone is entitled to their own opinions. If you enjoyed today's video, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and thanks for stopping by. Have a great day.